Hello and welcome to another Java video tutorial. In this video we're going to continue working on our menu program, and we're going to add a static method to our menu program in order to make the code a little bit more modular and reusable. We'll also have a look at how we can add some other features into the menu, make it a little bit more interesting. And then in particular towards the end of the video we'll have a look at some of the limitations and some of the problems with our code, and we'll address those in the next video. So without further ado, let's go and have a look at our code that we've developed so far for the menu, and then we'll add some more code to that to make it a little bit better. So if we have a look at our code window, we can see that from before, this is what we have. We have a menu that looks a little bit like this. So we have a class called menu, and in that class we have a main method, and all of the menu functionality is coded inside the main method, which isn't really great, but we'll fix that in a minute. If you remember, we had this choice variable, which was an integer that recorded the user's choice, what they selected off the menu. And then we had some system.out.println code, which basically displayed the menu to the user. And then we set up our scanner class, and we got some user input through the scanner class. So we read the next integer value from the keyboard. And then we had a while loop which controls the menu system. So the exit option on this menu was the fourth option on the list. So if the user enters in the number 4, then they exit the menu system. And inside of the while loop we had a conditional block which checked the user's choice and kind of carried out whatever action the user had picked off the menu. Once we had carried out that action, it was necessary to display the menu again to the user so that they had another chance at entering in something off the menu. And because they needed to enter in another choice, we repeated the code to read in another integer value from the keyboard to get the next choice. And of course all of that code is inside the while loop, which means every time the user selects something, we repeat that process again and again until such time they pick the exit option on the menu, which is option 4. And at that point the loop will finish. The guard on the loop will break and the loop will finish and the program will finish. So let's have a look at that program running again just to make sure we understand how it works and how it behaves. So if we go over to our terminal window, and I'll compile our program. So I'll say javac menu.java. So we've compiled it there, and then I'll run the program. So I'll say java menu, and you can see our menu appears. And if I pick option 1, it kind of says, okay, Americano coffee. If I pick option 2, it says latte coffee. If I pick option 3, it says espresso coffee. And then of course if I press option 4, which is the option to exit the menu, then we'll see a little goodbye message saying, goodbye, call again. So it just kind of signifies that the program has finished, and that's it, we're done. So we're going to take this code and we're going to make it a little bit better, step by step. Of course, we're not going to change it around too much, but we'll add enough features in to make the code a little bit more modular and reusable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically copy all of the code that we've done so far, and I'm going to paste it into a new file called menu2.java. So I have a blank file here, and I'm just going to basically copy and paste all of that code into this new file called menu2.java. Now because the file name is called menu2.java, of course I'm going to have to change the class name inside of the code, because the class name must match the file name, right? So I'll also call the class name menu2. So let's do that, menu2. Okay, now before I even change anything else, what I'll do is I'll save this and I'll just make sure everything is compiling again. So I've saved it. I'm going to go back out to my terminal window. I now have a menu2.java in this folder. So I'll compile the code. I'll say java menu2.java, and it compiles. That's good. And I'll run it just to be sure. Java menu2, and there we go. The program runs. So at least we know that the program is running. If we do anything else to it, we know that it was working. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make our program a little bit more modular, in that if you have a look at what we're doing here, we're displaying the menu using a whole bunch of system.out.println statements, and we're actually repeating that block of code twice in the program. So it's not very efficient. It's not very nice coding. So if you can see here, we have the display menu code, which is all our system out printlns that are displaying the menu. So we have that there before the menu, and then we repeat that code actually in the menu again. Now there are other ways to do this, but let's just work with what we have. How could we make that better? Well, one of the things that I could do is I could add a static method into this program which would display the menu. So therefore I wouldn't have to repeat that code block twice in my program. I could just make a call to some method, let's say display menu, and then that would display the menu for me. So let's do that. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to scroll up, and I'm going to put this static method in just before the main method in the program. So I'm going to go to where the main method is declared in my menu2 class, and I'm going to put a new method in just before that, and I'm going to say public static void. My display menu method isn't going to return any values. And what's it going to be called? Well, let's just call it display menu. So let's call it display menu, and it's not going to take any parameters for the moment. So we have a set of empty brackets there after the method name, and then I'm going to give the method a body with some curly brackets, and we're going to start coding this display menu method. Okay, so what's going to go into the body of this display menu method? Well, I don't really have to write any more new code because I have all the code written. All I need to do is take this display menu code and copy it, and I'm going to copy it into the display menu method. So there it is. I've just copied and pasted that code right into that method, and that's all I really need to do for the moment. So how do I use this? Well, now that I've got this static method defined, I can now make a call to that display menu method anywhere in the main method. So wherever I want to display the menu in my program, I can now just make a call to this display menu method. So let's do that. Okay, so down here in our original code, I'm just going to basically take all of this system output code, and I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm just going to type in display menu. So this is going to make a call to our static method called display menu, and when our program runs and we get to that point in the program's execution where we're going to execute this line of code, the display menu method code, it's going to make a call to this method. It's basically going to jump from that point in the program up to this method. It's going to execute that display menu method code, and it's going to return to the point from where it got called back into the main method, and it's just going to continue on execution from there. Okay, now there's somewhere else in the program where I actually display the menu, and that's in the while loop. So I'm going to go down into the while loop, and I'm going to actually copy this code, display menu, and the call to the method, and I'm going to put that in the while loop as well. So I'm going to just scroll down, and again just take all of that code and replace it with a call to display menu. Okay, so that's the first change that I'm going to make, and as you can see already our program, there's less lines of code in it because we're not duplicating this block of code that we were actually repeating twice in the program. We're no longer doing that, so we only have that block of code once, and then we make a call to the display menu method whenever we want to display the menu. So let's save that and let's run the program over in our terminal window. Let's actually compile it first. So this is called menu2.java compiles, which is good. And then we're going to run it, java menu2, and have a look and see. Well, look, our menu still appears. Okay, so nothing's broken. Our menu is still appearing. Let's test the program out. So I'll press 1 for an americano. Yeah, look, we get our message to say americano coffee, and the menu has reappeared. So that's that second call to the display menu method that's in the while loop. So everything is still working. Everything is working as we expect it to, and we've reduced the amount of lines of code in our program. We've made it more modular because we've taken that piece of functionality out of the code, that displaying the menu, and put it into a static method. Okay, so that's the first piece of work that we're going to do, and it's working fine. Okay, let's go back to our code. What else can we do? Well, one of the things that I don't like about this code at the moment is that the menu items are very much part of the display code for the menu. If I wanted to change the menu in some way, maybe like add a new item or change the name of an item on the menu, I'd have to go in and change these strings that I have in the menu. So all of these strings are hard coded, like they're fixed until I go in and change one of these options. So that's not very flexible. I'd like a better way to be able to control how many items I have in my menu, what the names of the items are, and so on. So how might I do that? Well, one of the things that I could do is I could try and separate the menu data, in other words, the options, the 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, and the menu items, like all the different coffees, like americano, latte, and so on. I could try and separate that data away from the display, which is a good thing to do because that's data that we want to display, and the display doesn't really care about what it's displaying. It just displays a menu. So if we try and separate those two things, it will work better for us. It will make it more flexible and reusable. Okay, how are we going to do this? Well, one of the ways that we could do it is we could take the options, so the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the menu items, and we could create 2 arrays that would store that data, and then the display menu method could just read the data from those arrays when it's displaying the menu. And that way we're separating the data and the display functionality. So let's do that. So I'm going to go into the main part of the program, and just after I declare the choice variable, I'm going to actually add in some more variables, and this time I'm going to add in some arrays. So the first array that I'm going to add in is going to be an integer array. So I'm going to make a little comment here called menu data, because all of these arrays that I'm going to create are going to be part of the menu data. So the first one is going to be an integer array, and I'm going to call that options. Okay, so it's going to be an array, so I'm going to put those 2 square brackets in at the variable name to signify to Java, hey look, I'm not declaring an individual integer variable here, I want to declare an array. So we have our array, and I'm not going to allocate space for this array. I want to initialize this array straight away. So I'm going to use the curly bracket method to create a list of values that I want to initialize this array with, because I kind of know what that data is already. So I'm going to say equals, and then I'm going to use this kind of list format surrounded by a set of curly braces, and I'm going to put in the options, the menu options. So what are my menu options? Well, if you have a look at our menu, you can see that the first option is number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 for exit. So I'm going to put those numbers into the options array. So first option will be option 1, then option 2, then option 3, and then option 4. So now I've got an array that contains the options in my menu system. Okay, that's only one part of the menu. What about the names of the coffees, americano, latte, espresso, and so on, the items that are in the menu? I'm going to create another array to store those. And this array is going to be a string array. So I'm going to say string, and I'm going to call this menu items. And again, my square brackets after the variable name to signify that it's going to be an array. And again, I'm going to use this list format to initialize the array straight away, because again, I already know that the items in my menu are going to be americano, latte, and then the last menu item is going to be exit. So let's set those up. So I'm going to have americano, I'm going to have latte. What's the next one? The next one is espresso, and then the last option in the menu is exit. So now I've got an array of strings that make up my menu items. Okay, so all of this code now is the data really that gets displayed as part of the menu. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need to have a way of getting my display menu method to basically display the contents of those arrays as a menu. So I'm going to go back up to my display menu method. Okay, and what I want to do here is I want to make it as flexible as possible. So I'm going to actually pass some parameters over to my display menu method now. So in here originally we had the display menu method. Okay, it didn't return anything, its return type was void. The name of the method of course is display menu, and then we had a set of empty brackets here, no parameters. The method didn't take any parameters. Well, it's going to take some parameters now, because the first parameter that I wanted to take are the actual menu options, the choices 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to pass over an integer array as the first parameter. So to do that, I'm going to say int options square brackets. So now I'm passing over a parameter to this display menu method, and the parameter is, well, its type is int. Okay, it's an array because we have these square brackets here that signifies it's an array. The name of the formal parameter is options. Now I can call that anything I want really, can't I? Because it's just a parameter. So I can call it OPTION, whatever. It doesn't really matter what I call that variable. I'm just going to stick with options because at least I know what that means. I know what it is. Okay, the next parameter that I'm going to pass over, well, the options gives us the numbers. What else do we need? We need to know the actual menu items. So I'm going to pass over a string array as the next formal parameter. And this is going to be called menu items. Again, I could call that formal parameter anything. I'm sticking with the same names here because at least I know what they are. Okay, so I'm going to have menu items, and that's going to be an array as well. Okay, so these formal parameters are going to be passed over to my display menu method, and actually they're quite long as formal parameter names. Let's see, I will actually change the names of these. I'm going to call this opts, and I'm going to call this menu items. Let's actually just call that items. Okay, so we have opts and items. It'll just save me typing out a little bit more. Shorter variable names just saves me a little bit of hassle. Okay, so there are two formal parameters that we've got. Okay, what are we going to do with these? Well, in the display menu method, let's see where these pieces of data are going to be needed. Well, if we have a look at the display menu method, it's really these lines of code, isn't it? If we have a look at those ones in particular, they're the ones that are actually displaying the menu items and the options on the items, right? So this little piece of code, this kind of menu, the word menu and the lines, that's not going to change. And down here, this isn't going to change because I still want that. but it's these lines in the middle there that I want to take the data from the new formal parameters that I've passed over. So how am I going to do that? Well, let's actually delete those lines of code for a second. And then in between here, what I want to do is I want to loop through options and items, and I want to display them. So I'm going to write a loop here to loop through those arrays and print out the menu options and print out the menu items, because I have them in an array. Why would I, you know, hard code the outputs when they're in an array? And I can write a loop to go through the array and print them out. So I'm going to just use a for loop for that. I'm going to say for int I equal to 0, and I'm going to say I less than. Now both of the arrays are the same length, okay? They're both the same dimension. Otherwise there'd be a problem, because I'd have maybe a menu item without an option, or an option without a menu item. So both of the arrays have to be the same size, of course. So I'm kind of assuming that for the moment anyway. So let's just use one of the arrays as a way to control the loop, and I'm going to use the options one. So I'm going to say options while I less than options dot length, and then I say I plus plus. So this is my loop that's going to loop through the arrays that I've created, and I'm going to print them out. I'm going to just display them. So inside the loop, what do I want to do? Well, I'm going to say system.out, and I'm going to use a printf statement here, because it allows me to format this menu string a little bit better, a little bit easier than a println. So I'm going to say printf, and this is my format string. So the first thing that I want to output is the array option. Okay, so that's going to be the number. So a number is %d. That's the placeholder, special character for an integer value. So I'm going to have %d, and then I had a little dot after that, like a little full stop. So then we're going to have the number, and then a dot, and then a space. Okay, and now I want to print out the array, or the menu item itself. So that's a string, right? So I'm going to have %s. So that's the placeholder for a string value. And what else do I need to do? Oh, because it's a printf statement, of course I'm going to have to insert a new line character. So I'll do that. I'll put in a new line character, and then all I need to do is list the variables that I want to print out in the places where I've specified the %d and the %s. So what variables are they going to be? Well, remember, I'm going to pull these values from the arrays that I've got, that I've used. Okay, so what was the name of my array? Well, opts was the name of the options array. Oh, and I've actually made a mistake here. I've called it options. So let's change that, OPTS. So now I've got my for loop, and I'm using this formal parameter name opts.length. Okay, and so I'm going to say in here what variables I'm going to print out. So the %d is going to be opts I, because it's the first item in that options array, and then the next time around the loop will be the next item in the options array, and so on. And then also I want to print out the items, and that should do the trick. That should print out the menu. Should print out the menu for me. And if you have a look, what we've replaced, we have taken all those system.out.printlns with the hard-coded menu options and the hard-coded menu names or items, and we've replaced it with this loop to loop through the options array and print out the options and also the array items. Where are they coming from? Well, they're getting passed in through these formal parameters that we now have for our display menu method. Okay, and where does the data come from? Well, it's going to come from this or these arrays that we've got set up in our main program. Okay, So there's little bit of work to do, because when we make a call to the display menu method down here, oops, I'm zooming in the wrong way. So when we make a call to the display menu method, I now need to pass over those arrays, the options array and the menu items array, in order for the display menu method to display the items. Okay, so let's do that. So the first parameter that gets passed over to the display menu method now is the options array, because that's the first, it expects that first. And then the next one that gets passed over is menu items. Okay, so now this is what the call to the display menu method looks like. It now takes two arguments, two parameters. It takes, the first one is an integer array called options, which gives me the 1, 2, 3, 4. The second argument that I'm passing over is the menu items, and that of course is the string array, and that contains the names of all the coffees that I want on my menu. Now I've changed it here, but remember this also appears somewhere else in the program. It also appears inside my loop, so I've got to change it in the loop as well. Let's go down and change it in the loop. Here it is in the loop, and I'm going to just replace that with exactly the same code as I've done a second ago, just with the two parameters, the options array and the menu items array. Okay, so we've made a few changes there. So we have parameterized the display menu method. We have taken out some of that hard-coded menu display and put in a loop, which loops through the arrays, the options array and the items array, and prints those out. We've used a printf statement in here to format that output a little bit, and of course then we have added our menu data in array format into the main method. And then when we actually make a call to the display menu method in two places, we have passed over those arrays to the display menu method there, and also inside the loop. Okay, let's save this and see, does it compile? Let's see. So Java menu2.java, it compiles. Okay, let's see, does it run? Java menu2. Oh, okay, we're getting a menu, so everything looks good so far. We have a menu getting displayed, it looks the same as before, and it should, because it should do the same thing. And let's see, does it work? So I'll enter in 1, and we get, yeah, americano coffee, that looks good. Okay, enter in 2, yeah, latte coffee, everything's working. So we have extracted the data that the menu wants, that the menu needs to display, and we've now pulled that out and put it into some arrays, and that makes it more flexible, because for example, I can now go to these to my array, and for example, if I wanted to change the latte, for example, to cappuccino, I could do that very easily. And did I spell cappuccino correctly? Okay, cappuccino. So I could save that, and when I compile the program again out here in my terminal window, and let's run the program, you can now see that the menu has changed. Look, we now have an americano, yeah, that was the first item, but now we have a cappuccino for the second item. So that allows me to change the menu very flexibly by just changing a value in that array, and I now have a different menu item. Okay, so I can change that back to latte for the moment, and let's leave it as is. And you can see out here, if I recompile the program again and run it again, we are back to our original menu with the latte as option number 2. So it makes it a little bit more flexible, a little bit more easy to deal with, and it makes our menu method much more useful, because now we can actually specify menu items that we wanted to display. Okay, how could we take this a little bit further? let's see. Well, now that we have those options on the menu items in an array, what about down here in our loop code? Could we change that around a little bit, or could we take advantage of the fact that we now have the menu data pulled out of the display and stored in those two arrays? Okay, well, let's have a look. Well, choice is the value that the user enters, so that's not going to change. They're still going to need to enter in a value. But what you can see here is that in our menu, we've got these hard-coded values here. You can see we've got the number 4 because number 4 is the exit option. We're then checking if choice is equal to 1, so we've got the hard-coded 1. Else if choice equals 2, again we're hard coding 2. So this could be a little bit better. Now that we have those values in an array, why don't we use that array as part of the while loop here as well, both in the guard of the while loop and also as part of the conditional block that's inside the while loop. Okay, so let's concentrate on the guard first of all. So we have choice not equal to 4. Okay, well, 4 is a hard-coded value, so let's make the program a little bit more flexible and get rid of that hard-coded number 4. All right, so I'm going to add in another variable up here, and I'm going to call this exit option, for want of a better word. I'm just going to call it exit option. Okay, so I'm going to say int exit, and I'm going to put the word exit in uppercase here, just so I know that it's kind of like a fixed value that I'm initializing here, because I'm going to use that as part of the guard on the loop. So I'm going to say exit equals, what would exit equal? Well, currently we use the hard-coded value 4 in the loop, okay? So I'm going to assume that in our options array, the last value in our options array is always going to be the exit option, right? I'm going to assume that the last item on the menu, the last choice on the menu is to exit the system. So it's always going to be the last value in this options array. So I'm going to say exit equals options. Right, how am I going to get the last value in the options array? Well, I can use the length of the array minus 1, which will give me the index of the last item in the array. So I'm going to say options dot length. Now, if I did that, and if I didn't put in the minus 1, I'd get an error. I'd get an array index out of bounds, because there are 4 items in the array, in the options array. You can see there are 4 items, but the last index is 3, because remember the array indices start at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So because of that, if I'm looking for the index of the last item, it's options.length minus 1, minus 1. Okay, so now exit is actually going to get the value 4, but it's getting the value 4 from that array, from the options array. It's not hard coded as such, it's getting it from this array. So if I change the array, if I change the values in the options array, now I have a way of making my loop still work. It's not going to be hard coded at 4 all the time. So if I go back down to my loop, and you can see here I have choice not equal to 4. Okay, well, now I have this exit value here in my program. So I can say, while choice not equal to exit, okay, which will be the last value in the options array. Okay, what else can I do? Well, let's have a look at the conditional block here. All right, and the conditional block has the value 1, 2, 3. Okay, they're the other options in the array, right? So I mean, all I need to do here is I need to just basically go through each option in the array, the options array, and check to see is the user choice equal to that option. So for 1, for example, well, the number 1 in the options array is the first value, right? So I'm just going to go through them in order. Okay, the first value is 1, second value is 2, third value is 3, and the last value is 4. I don't need one for the exit though, remember? So I'm going to look at the value at index 0. I'm going to look at the value at index 1. and I'm going to look at the value at index 2, and I'm going to use those values in the options array as part of my conditional block inside the loop. You'll see how I'm going to do that now. So I'm going to say choice is equal to 1. Well, what is 1 in my options array? Well, it's really options 0. Okay, and I'm going to change the 2 here. Well, what's that? Well, that's really options 1. Options 1. And what's the 3? Well, the 3 is at index 2. So this is options 2. So now I've gotten rid of those hard-coded values in my conditional block, and I'm now saying, well, is choice equal to options 0, whatever value that happens to be in the options array? Is choice equal to options 1, whatever value that happens to be in the options array, and so on and so on. Okay, what else can I do? Well, I've still got some hard-coded values in here. Look, this one, if choice is equal to option 0, I'm going to print out Americano coffee. But what if I change that? What if I happened to change the item on the menu? That was the first item. If I changed Americano to cappuccino, this would still say Americano coffee when I made that choice on the menu. That's obviously incorrect. So instead of hard coding the string in here in this system out, I'm also going to use the names or the strings from the menu items array. So instead of saying Americano there, I'm going to say, I can just change this. I can take that out of there and I can say menu items 0 plus. Could use a printf. I'm just being lazy here. I've already got a println, so I'm just going to change it to this. So now instead of saying Americano there, it's going to pick the name out from the menu items array. So if I ever do change the menu, my messages are going to work as well. And we'll test that in a minute. Let's do the same for the other ones here. So latte, well, I'm not interested in printing latte. I'm interested in printing menu items 1 plus. And you can see the options, like the option 0 is matching with the menu item 0 because they're all matched together in those two arrays. And options 1 is matching with menu items 1, and so on and so on. So this is going to be the same, isn't it? Let's get rid of espresso. Let's leave the space in there, and let's say menu items. This is going to be menu items 2. And we're going to print out. So our messages are all changed now. And let's have a look in the menu or in the loop code now. So look, there's nothing hard coded there because we've got this exit variable that's going to be the last item in the options array. And there's nothing hard coded now in our conditional block inside the while loop. We're picking all those values that we need out of either the options array or the menu items array. So there's nothing hard coded in there that if the menu changed, we'd break the program somehow. And that's about it. I think that's all the changes I want to do for the moment. So let's save that and let's go over here. I'll just clear this window out a little bit and let's compile it. Java C menu 2.java. Let's hope it compiles. Does compile, that's good. Okay, Java menu 2, and hey presto, we still have a menu, which is good. Now let's see, do we still have a working menu? So I'm going to pick option 1, and yeah, look, we see we have Americano coffee, so everything's working still. Let's pick option 2. Option 2. Latte coffee, yes, brilliant. Option 3, espresso coffee, yes, and let's exit the menu. Everything works perfectly, even the exit. Okay, so let's just prove that this will work now by let's change one of the menu items, right? Let's change the Americano to cappuccino. Cappuccino. Okay. So we now have a cappuccino as the first item instead of an Americano. And let's just play around with this a little bit. And we'll add in another menu item, right? So we'll add in, let's put the Americano back in, but let's put it in at the end. It's going to be the last item. So let's put a new Americano item in here in our menu. So I'm making the menu bigger. So now I've got a cappuccino to begin with, latte, espresso, Americano, and then exit. I'm going to also have to add in some new options in my options array, because I'm going to have option 1, cappuccino, option 2, latte, option 3, espresso, option 4, Americano, and then exit is going to be option 5. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 as my exit option. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go over to my terminal window and let's compile this again. Javac menu2.java. Great, no errors. And Java menu2. Hey, we've got a menu. The first item on the menu is a cappuccino, then a latte, then an espresso, then an Americano, then exit is now 5. Okay, the menu displays, but let's see, does it work? So let's pick option 1. Option 1 gets us a cappuccino. That's great. Option 2 gets us a latte. Brilliant. Okay, option 3 should be espresso coffee. Excellent. Option 4 should be... Oh, no, option 4. What did I forget to do? I've forgotten to do something here. I know what I didn't do. I didn't put another branch in my if statement in the while loop. I'll go and do that now in a second. Wonder does my menu exit? Let's press number 5 for exit. Menu exits. Okay, so I don't get an output for Americano because I don't have a branch in my if block to do that. So let's go back into the program. Okay, here's the if block. Okay, and as you can see, I said if choice equals option 0, else if choice equals options 1, else if choice equals options 2. But I don't have one for 3, item 3. So I'm going to just basically copy this else if. And I'm going to put another one in here. And this time it's going to be options 3. And it's going to output menu items 3. I'm going to save that. I'm going to go back over to my window, going to compile my code, and I'm going to run my code. Okay, my menu appears. Let's go through the options again and make sure the menu works. Number 1, cappuccino. That works. Number 2, latte. That works as well. Number 3, espresso coffee. That works too. And now number 4, this is the one that didn't work the last time. Number 4, yes, Americano coffee. Okay, and then number 5 for exit, menu, exits, program finishes, we're done. Okay, so we've made that much more flexible now by adding in the arrays, and we've basically removed all the hard-coded stuff from our loop and also from our conditional block, so that if we do change the menu items, everything else changes as well. We now don't have to worry about anything needing to be changed inside the conditional block or the loop, because it's all driven by the arrays, the values that are in the arrays. Okay, I'm going to do one last thing. What about if we wanted to display some prices as part of our menu? How might we do that? Well, I could add in another array that would store the prices of the items on the menu. So let's add in another array called prices. Okay, so we've got our options array, and we've got our string array for the menu items. Let's add in another array. So this time it's going to be a double array, and I'm going to call this prices. Why not? Why not just call it prices? Okay, prices, the square brackets to signify that it's going to be an array. And again, I'm going to use this list notation with the curly brackets in order to initialize the array, because I'm just going to put some prices in for my items, right? So how many items require prices? Well, there are 5 items in the options array, but remember, one of those is exit, so exit doesn't need a price, right? It's only the coffee items that need a price. So this prices array is actually going to be a different size to the options and the menu items array. Okay, so we'll have to change our display a little bit to account for that, but that's not a problem. We can do that. So let's put in our prices and we'll figure things out as we go along. So the first price, okay, I don't know how much coffees cost really, but I'm just gonna make up some prices here. Okay, so my first price for a cappuccino, I'm gonna say, I think I might be a bit on the cheap side, but I'm gonna say $2.50 for a cappuccino. For a latte, I'm gonna say €3. For an espresso, let's say €2 for an espresso. For an americano, I'm gonna say $2.50 as well. And then I don't need any more because exit is the next option. I've only got 4 different coffees on my menu, so I only need 4 prices. Okay, so my prices array is only going to contain 4 items, as opposed to the other 2 arrays that contain 5 items. So there's the prices. Okay, when I want to display the array or display the menu with the prices, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to have to go back up to my display menu method up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass over the prices array as a parameter. So now this method is going to take 3 parameters. It's going to take another array, and the third array that it's going to take as a parameter will be the prices. So I'm going to change the parameter list for this method. It's going to take another array. This is going to be an array of doubles. It's going to be called, what do I call it? I'll just call it pure, okay? And it's going to have double brackets to signify that it's an array, okay? So now this takes 3 parameters. Takes the options, takes the items, takes the prices as the third parameter. Okay, now what am I going to do inside my loop here in the display? Because this is driven by the fact that the arrays are the same length. The options array and the items were the same length. They have the same amount of items in them. But now I've got these prices. So when I display the exit option, when I print that out, that's not going to have a price. So how am I going to handle that? Well, one thing that I could do is I could treat the exit option as a kind of special case. I could remove that exit option from the loop part of the display, and the loop, the for loop in my method, will only display the items on the menu that do have prices, and I'll deal with the exit option, which obviously doesn't have a price, as a separate thing outside of the loop. Okay, so what I want to do is I only want to loop around the first 4 items in the options array and like the first 4 items in the menu items array, or in other words, I want to not include the very last item in those arrays because that's the exit option. So I want to loop to the end and not go quite as far as the end, but like leave that last one there and not process that one. So I'm going to change my guard on my loop here. Instead of looping until I is less than opt.length, I want to do one less than that. So I'm going to say length -1. Now that's not going to go all the way to the end of the array while I'm processing it. It's going to leave that last item in the array. But we know that the last item in the array is the exit option. Okay, that's the logic behind this. So what I want to do also in my system out where I have my printf statement is I want to print not only the option of the menu item itself, I now want to print the price of the item. So I'm going to change my little format string here. So at the moment I have a %d for the menu option, then the dot, then the menu item itself, which is a string, %s. So the next thing I'm going to print is, well, I'm actually going to make it look a little bit neater as well. I'm going to actually, after the menu item, I want to print a tab character, and the tab will space the prices out to the right, all of an equal distance, and it will just make the menu look a little bit more neater, I suppose. So I'm going to put in a /t for tab, and then I want to put in a %.2f, because I want the prices to be printed using 2 decimal places. They are decimal numbers, they're doubles, so I can use %2f, and that will format that output to 2 decimal places. And then what I want to do is, not only do I want to print the option and the item, but now I want to include the price. So I'm going to have PRI in there as well. So now have a look at that. We're now printing 3 things. We're printing the option, we're printing the menu item, and we're also printing the price. Okay, now what about that exit, that last option on the menu? Okay, well, the loop is not going to print the exit, so I'm going to have to look after that manually when the loop finishes. So right after here, I'll just say print the exit option, because I'm going to have to look after, I'm going to have to do that myself. So what will I do here? Well, I can just say system.out.println, and I'm going to print, well, what am I going to print? I want to print the last option, the last, and the last item. I don't need to worry about price because exit doesn't have a price. So I'm going to, will I use printf? Oh, why not? I'll use printf here as well. So actually, you know, I could copy the format string from up here. So I'm going to copy that format string. Actually, let's copy that whole thing down into here, and let's put that in there. Okay, so now that we have that, remember we don't need to print a price. So I'm actually going to just take the /t and the %.2f out of there, because we're not printing a price anymore. We're just printing the item, the option of exit, whatever that happens to be, and the actual exit name, the item that we're going to print. And so I can get rid of the price here as well. Okay, and what do I want to print? Well, I want to print the very last item in the options array. So how do I print the last item in the options array? Well, it's going to be opt.length. Now that length is going to give me an array index out of bounds, because remember our arrays are 0 based. So it's going to be opt's length -1. And also I want to print the very last item in my items array. So it's actually going to be items.length -1. And that will print the last option in the options array and the last item in the items array, which would be the exit, the number for exit, whatever that happens to be in my menu, and whatever word represents exiting my menu, and that will be in my array that I've defined in my main program. Okay, so that's it. I hope that works. The only way to find out really is to save and compile. Oh, there's one little thing that we need to do. When we're calling the display menu, we need to pass over the prices array. So I need to pass over 3 parameters now. I need to pass over the prices. So let's do that there. And remember, we do this also in the loop, so I need to also do that in the loop. So hopefully that's it. Let's save it, and fingers crossed it compiles for us and we don't have any errors. So javac menu2.java. Yes, no errors. That's good. Let's run it. Java Java menu2. Well, okay, we've got a menu. We've got items on the menu that have prices. The prices are appearing, and they're all coming, all those values are coming from the arrays that we have. So everything else should be working fine, because the prices didn't interfere with the loop, the guard on the loop. The prices didn't interfere with our outputs or anything like that. We could actually maybe put some messages in, like, you know, maybe if we typed in 1 You know, we could say cappuccino coffee and maybe print out the price that it cost or something like that. Let's do that for just for a last little thing to add to the program. So in our system outs here, we can put in menu item 0, coffee, and let's also include the price. So let's put in a space, and let's say the price as well. So price 0. Okay. And we can do that for the rest of them here as well. Space and price. And it's going to be price 1, isn't it? Because it's option 1 and menu items 1. And this is going to be price 2. And this is going to be price 3. Okay. Price 3. Save that. Let's see. There's a compile. Oh, we've got an error somewhere here. Price. Did I call it prices or? Ah, yes. Look, my array name was called prices, not price. So I just need to put an S at the end there on each one of these. Save it and compile. And let's run it. So now we get our menu displayed. I can pick option 1 and we get the price printed out. Oh, it's not formatting it to 2 decimal places. Okay, I could change that with a printf statement. So let's do that. Let's not leave the program with a little bit of a problem. Okay, so let me see. So I need to change all of these to printf. Oh, printf and printf, and then what do I want to do? So I want to, my string is going to be the same for all of them, so I'm going to have %s, and then I'm going to have the word coffee, and then I'm going to have the price, so that's going to be %.2f. Formatted to 2 decimal places, and then the first thing that I'm going to print out is menu, and then I want to print out the price, and that should work for all of them. Oh, of course I need to print out a new line, don't I? So I'm going to have new line there as well. And guess what I can do? I can just copy this down now to all the others and change the indexes. Let's copy it down first to all the other places that we need it, and then I'll go back and I'll change the indexes. Of course, if I don't change the indexes, it's going to print out whatever the first menu item is all the time. So this needs to be 1 and 1, and then this needs to be 2 and 2. And then this needs to be 3 and 3. And we're going to save this and run it and compile it. So let's go to the terminal window. Oh, let's make sure I have saved this first, and then we'll compile it and we'll run it. Okay, everything looks good. Let's pick option 1 off the menu, cappuccino. And there we go, cappuccino coffee, $2.50. Let's pick option 3. There we go, espresso coffee, €2. And let's pick americano. There we go, americano coffee, $2.50. Okay, so we've made this menu system much more flexible now. We've changed quite a lot of the code that we started off with originally. It's still got problems. One of the problems that we're going to fix in the next tutorial, the next part of this kind of exercise, is we're going to fix some of the user input errors that can occur. One of these problems is that I'm relying on the user to enter in integers all the time. And that in itself isn't necessarily a bad thing, but what if they typed in something else? Like, what if they typed in an alphabetical character instead of the number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? What would happen to the program? Well, unfortunately, it's just going to crash because I haven't handled any of those error cases. So, for example, I'm sitting here and my program is still running over here. What if I were to enter in or type in the letter A, for example, and press enter? I'm going to get an error. My program has crashed. It's experienced a runtime error, a particular type of runtime error called an input mismatch exception. So in the next episode, we're going to have a look and see how we can go about fixing this so that the program isn't going to crash if the user types in the wrong input, which is obviously pretty weak and pretty bad. So that's it for this tutorial. If you found it useful, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps me in developing these tutorials and lets me know that people are interested in what I'm doing and finding it useful. Also give me a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment down below, and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more of my upcoming Java tutorials, and especially the next part of this menu tutorial where we're going to fix some of these problems. Stay tuned. See you next time.